If you chose to dedicate the next 6 months of your life with no excuses and no pointless distractions, everything around you could be unrecognizable by the end of that time. If that thought made you stop for a second, that is a good sign. Most people scroll right past the very message that could wake them up. This is not just more background noise to listen to and forget. This is for the person who is sick of wasting time, sick of watching everyone else move forward while they feel stuck in the same place. It is for the person who feels late to their own life, who keeps starting and then quitting, who feels like they are living the same day on repeat. Giving yourself 6 months to transform your life is not just a catchy phrase. It is a choice. And this might be the first time someone is actually telling you the truth without sugarcoating anything. You cannot keep living like your future is guaranteed no matter what you do. You cannot keep drifting through days as if tomorrow is owed to you. You do not have to stay where you are. But you also will not change if you keep doing what you have always done. 6 months will pass whether you commit to change or not. The real question is who you will be when those months are over. If you are honest, you already know why you have not changed yet. It is not because you are incapable. It is not because you lack potential. It is because you keep giving your time, your focus, and your energy to things that drain you and then wondering why you feel empty. You keep saying you will start when you feel ready, but that day never comes. You listen to videos that motivate you for a few minutes, but you never sit with the discomfort long enough to do something different. You promise yourself you will start on Monday, then the next month, then the new year. You wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect version of yourself to appear. But it never happens. Change does not come from waiting. It comes from drawing a line and saying, I will not live like this anymore. It comes from cutting off the habits, the people, the patterns that keep you small. It comes from being brutally honest about what is really going on in your life. 6 months of real honesty will do more for you than 6 years of pretending that everything is fine. Right now, there are things you know are hurting you. There are habits you know are pulling you backwards. You do not need anyone to tell you what they are. You feel the guilt every time you do them. You feel the heaviness every time you repeat that same cycle. You already know how much time you lose scrolling, how often you escape into distractions instead of facing what hurts. You know how many days you wake up and reach for your phone before you even take a breath and think about your own life. You know how often you stay up late for no reason, knowing you will wake up exhausted and then call yourself lazy. You know the food, the drink, the entertainment, the people that leave you feeling worse, not better. You know all of it. The problem is not awareness. The problem is tolerance. You have become used to living below your own standards. You have normalized feeling tired, unmotivated, and disappointed in yourself. You tell yourself this is just how life is. You convince yourself you will fix it someday, when things calm down, when you have more time, when you feel more confident. But nothing changes because you never change what you allow. You cannot keep saying you want a different life while you keep choosing the same behaviors. Change begins the moment you stop making excuses for the things that are hurting you. 6 months of refusing to tolerate your own self-sabotage could transform your entire reality. You do not need a perfect blueprint. You do not need every step mapped out. What you need is a decision that you will no longer accept the version of you that always breaks promises to yourself. You need to treat your own word like it matters. You need to take your life seriously enough to say, I am done living like this. For the next 6 months, your only job is to stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending those habits are harmless. Stop acting like you do not know what needs to change. Stop telling yourself that you are stuck when deep down you know you are just scared to do what is necessary. Fear is not a reason to stay where you are. It is a signal that you are standing at the edge of something important. This is where real strength is built, not in the moments when you feel inspired, but in the moments when you would rather quit and you do not. When you feel the pull to numb out, to distract yourself, and instead you sit with the discomfort and choose something different. That is where self-respect starts to grow. That is where your life starts to shift. 6 months can completely change your direction, but only if you dare to tell yourself the truth about your patterns and actually do something about them. Most people want to skip this uncomfortable part. They want a schedule, a checklist, a step-by-step routine. But none of that works if your foundation is still weak. You do not have to solve everything at once. You do not need to know every detail of the future. You just need to start removing what you already know is wrong. That is where your power comes back. That is where momentum begins. The more honest you are with yourself, the faster your life will start to reflect that. At first, the change will show up in small, quiet ways. You will notice you are waking up with a little more energy. You will feel more present in your own body instead of drifting through the day on autopilot. You will feel a small but real shift inside you, the sense that you are finally moving in the right direction, and that feeling will grow every time you follow through on what you said you would do. Your mind is not used to this level of honesty, so at first it will try to pull you back into what feels normal. Normal is hitting snooze 3 times. Normal is opening your phone before you even sit up. Normal is filling every quiet moment with noise so you do not have to think about what is actually going on inside. You have been living on autopilot for so long that slowing down enough to see clearly will feel uncomfortable at first. Most of your days are shaped by tiny decisions you barely notice. You reach for your phone without thinking. You open an app without meaning to. You tell yourself you will just check one thing, and suddenly 30 minutes are gone. You are not weak or broken for this. You have simply trained your brain to chase the fastest, easiest hit of stimulation. The world is built to keep you distracted, and if you are not careful, you will spend your entire life reacting instead of creating. If you really gave yourself 6 months, you would start by taking back control of your attention. Not in a dramatic, all-or-nothing way, but in small, deliberate choices. You decide that the first minutes of your day belong to you, not to a screen. You decide that you will not open apps every time you feel bored, stressed, or unsure. You decide that your focus is not something you are willing to give away for free anymore. At first, it will feel strange. You will catch yourself reaching for your phone and stop halfway. You will sit in silence and feel restless. Your mind will try to convince you that you are missing out on something important. But slowly, day by day, you will notice that the grip of distraction is getting weaker. You will start to feel your own thoughts again. You will begin to remember what it is like to be present in your own life. This is where identity comes in. If you still see yourself as the person who always quits, who never follows through, who is just naturally lazy, you will keep acting like that person. Change becomes possible when you start telling yourself a different story. For the next 6 months, you are the kind of person who does what they say they will do. You are the kind of person who respects their time. You are the kind of person who is willing to be uncomfortable in the short term to build a better long term. You do not have to announce this to anyone. You do not have to post about it or make a big speech. Let your actions be the proof. Let your calendar show it. Let your progress speak for you. Every time you do what you said you would do, even in a small way, you are casting a vote for the new version of you. Enough votes, and the old story stops feeling true. Environment matters more than motivation. You can watch the most powerful video in the world and still go back to the same habits if nothing around you changes. Look at your room, your desk, your home. Do they support the life you say you want, or do they keep you stuck in the past? 6 months is enough time to turn your space into a place that reminds you of your goals instead of your distractions. That might mean clearing out the clutter that keeps you overwhelmed. It might mean removing the apps that steal your focus. It might mean putting your phone in another room while you work, or setting time limits so you do not fall into the same endless scroll. These changes are not dramatic to anyone else, but to you, they are a clear signal that you are serious. You did not come across Momentum Audiobooks by accident. You found this message because a part of you is already done with the old way of living. A part of you knows you are capable of more than repeating the same month over and over. For the next 6 months, let that part of you lead. Let that part of you make the decisions, especially when you feel tired, bored, or afraid. There will be days when you do not feel like doing any of it. Days when the old habits feel louder than the new standards you are setting. That is not a sign that you are failing. That is part of the process. Growth does not feel inspiring most of the time. It feels repetitive. It feels ordinary. It feels like waking up, doing the things you committed to, and going to bed a little bit more proud of yourself than you were yesterday. You are not trying to become a perfect robot who never relaxes or has fun. You are simply choosing to stop letting your impulses be in charge of your life. You are choosing to act from your priorities instead of your moods. You are choosing to build a 6-month stretch of time where you give yourself a real chance, maybe for the first time ever, to see what happens when you actually stay consistent. If you stay with this, you will notice a shift. Your friends may not understand at first. They might joke about you changing. They might try to pull you back into old patterns. Not because they are bad people, but because your growth challenges their comfort. You do not have to argue with them or convince them. Just keep showing up for yourself. In time, the results will speak louder than any explanation. 6 months from now, you can be the person who looks back and says, I kept putting it off and nothing really changed. Or you can be the person who says, I finally got honest, I finally committed, and now my life feels completely different. Both versions of you are possible. The difference is decided in the quiet choices you make today, tomorrow, and the day after that. This is your chance to choose on purpose, instead of drifting by default. Real change starts when you stop treating discipline like a temporary challenge and start seeing it as part of who you are becoming. You are not doing this just to survive a 6-month sprint and then collapse back into old habits. You are using these 6 months to build a version of you that moves differently, chooses differently, and shows up even when nobody is watching. This is about becoming the kind of person who does not abandon themselves when things get uncomfortable. Right now, the patterns that hold you back feel familiar, and that familiarity tricks you into believing they are safer than growth. Every time you repeat the same cycle of scrolling, delaying, or numbing out, you are reinforcing an identity that tells you this is just who you are. But it is not who you are. It is just who you have practiced being. And what you have practiced can be unlearned. You do not need to destroy your entire life and start from zero. You start by interrupting the small loops that keep you stuck. One less hour lost to meaningless content. One moment where you choose to breathe instead of react. One night where you go to bed when you said you would instead of staying up just to escape your own thoughts. These choices do not look dramatic from the outside, but they are powerful because they send a new message to your mind. They prove that you are not a prisoner of your habits. Of course, your brain will fight back at first. The routines you want to change have been your comfort for a long time. They soothed your stress, distracted you from pain, filled silence you did not know how to sit with. When you start letting them go, you will feel resistance. You will feel the urge to slip back into what feels easy. That is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you are rewiring your system. You do not rewire your life in one huge dramatic gesture. You do it by choosing one specific behavior and deciding, this is where the pattern ends. Maybe it is hitting snooze 10 times. Maybe it is wasting the first hour of your day on your phone. Maybe it is telling yourself you will start tomorrow. Pick one place where you are tired of your own excuses and make that your training ground. 6 months from now, you will look back at that one choice as the crack where the old version of you started to break apart. Your days are the raw material of your future. That is why your daily structure matters more than any abstract dream. The way you design your mornings, your afternoons, and your nights will either carry you toward the life you say you want or quietly drag you back into what you say you are done with. There is nothing magical about this. It is practical. If you end every night wired and overstimulated, you will not wake up sharp and focused. If you pour chaos into your evenings, you cannot expect calm from your mornings. Start simple. Give the first minutes of your day a purpose. Instead of grabbing a screen, grab your thoughts. Ask yourself who you are choosing to be today. Ask what actually matters over the next few hours. You can write it down, speak it out loud, or just sit with it in silence. The point is to remind your mind that you are not just drifting into a random day. You are walking into a day you have chosen. Throughout the day, keep returning to that choice. When you feel the pull toward distraction, pause for a moment and ask, is this in line with the person I am building, or is this just the old pattern trying to pull me back? That tiny question pulls you out of autopilot and back into awareness. It gives you a chance to respond instead of react, to choose the long term over the quick hit that leaves you empty. Your evenings are just as important as your mornings. You cannot expect to wake up feeling strong if you go to sleep acting weak. If your nights are filled with junk food, endless scrolling, low-quality entertainment, and conversations that drain you, your mornings will reflect that. 6 months of chaotic nights equals 6 months of foggy mornings. 6 months of intentional evenings equals 6 months of building real momentum. Think of your evenings as the time you prepare the next version of yourself. You slow down on purpose. You put your phone away earlier than you are used to. You clean your space so tomorrow does not start with visual chaos. You give your mind a chance to breathe instead of drowning it in constant stimulation. None of this has to be perfect or aesthetic. It just has to be honest and consistent. Over time, these simple rhythms become a kind of quiet power. You will notice that while other people keep saying they feel lost and unfocused, you are slowly starting to feel clear. While others keep making promises they do not keep, you are stacking small wins every day. That is where real confidence comes from. Not from hyping yourself up, but from living in a way that proves you can trust yourself. Trust is not a motivational quote. Trust is built when you tell yourself you will do something and then actually do it. Every time you follow through, you send a message to your own mind, my word matters. Every time you quit on yourself, you send the opposite message, what I say does not really count. 6 months of breaking that pattern and treating your commitments like they are non-negotiable will rewrite the story you tell about who you are. And when that inner story changes, everything changes with it. You no longer see yourself as someone who always gives up. You start to see yourself as someone who shows up. Someone who chooses growth over comfort. Someone who uses their days instead of throwing them away. That inner shift is what turns a 6-month experiment into a new standard for your entire life. There is another trap that will try to pull you away from your 6-month commitment, and that trap is comparison. You look at people who seem further ahead, who started earlier, who have more resources, more support, more confidence, and you use them as proof that you are behind. Every scroll through social media becomes a reminder of where you think you should already be. You forget that most of what you see is the highlight, not the real process behind it. Comparison steals the energy you need to build your own path. When you spend your time measuring your progress against someone else's timeline, you lose sight of your own. You are not supposed to be at the same stage as anyone else. Your experiences, your responsibilities, your starting point, your strengths, and your weaknesses are all different. 6 months is not about catching up to anyone. It is about finally showing up fully for your own life. For the next 6 months, treat your journey like a tunnel where you can still see others, but you do not leave your lane. Let other people's success be proof that change is possible, not evidence that you are too late. When you feel jealousy or discouragement rising, instead of pretending it is not there, ask yourself what it is actually showing you. Often, the people you envy are not there to make you feel small. They are showing you a direction your soul already wants to move toward. You are allowed to admire someone without mimicking their exact path. You are allowed to be inspired and still do things your own way. The routines, strategies, or tools that worked for them might not fit your life exactly, and that is okay. You do not fail just because you do not follow someone else's formula perfectly. You only fail when you stop experimenting and adjusting until you find what fits you. Another thing that will try to stop you is the belief that if your effort is not massive, it is worthless. You think that if you cannot work for hours every day, overhaul your entire diet at once, or change your mindset overnight, then it is not even worth starting. That all or nothing thinking is one of the main reasons you have stayed stuck. It gives you an excuse to wait for a moment when everything feels perfect, and that moment never comes. Real progress is usually quiet and unglamorous. It looks like choosing the better option when it would be easier not to. It looks like starting with 20 minutes when you wish you could give 2 hours. It looks like doing one workout when you are tired instead of skipping the entire week because you missed a day. 6 months built on small, consistent actions will take you farther than 6 years of waiting for the ideal conditions. Instead of asking, how much can I do in one day, start asking, what can I keep doing for 6 months straight? That question shifts your focus from intensity to consistency. Anybody can be intense for a short time. Very few people are willing to be steady long enough to see real change. You are choosing to be one of the few. You are choosing to care more about what you repeat than about what looks impressive for a moment. Your habits around your body will play a huge part in this. When your energy is low, everything feels harder. Things that are already challenging start to feel impossible. For the next 6 months, you do not need a perfect fitness plan. You need movement that reminds you that you are alive. Walk more. Stretch more. Breathe deeply. Do the simple things that your future self will thank you for. The same goes for what you feed your mind. If you spend hours taking in negativity, drama, and meaningless noise, do not be surprised when your thoughts feel heavy and cluttered. 6 months of protecting your mind will create more change than you expect. Choose content that builds you instead of breaking you down. Listen to voices that challenge you to grow, not voices that keep you comfortable in your excuses. Be careful with the language you use about yourself. Every time you say, I am lazy, I am not disciplined, I always mess things up, you are reinforcing the very identity you are trying to leave behind. For the next 6 months, become intentional with your words. You do not have to lie to yourself or pretend everything is perfect. You simply need to stop attacking yourself and start speaking in a way that supports who you are becoming. You can say, I am learning to be more consistent. I am building discipline. I am practicing following through. These statements are honest and forward-focused. They acknowledge where you are and point you toward where you are going. The more you hear yourself speak this way, the easier it becomes to act in alignment with those words. You are not hypnotizing yourself. You are retraining your self-image. There will also be old emotions that surface once you stop numbing and distracting yourself all the time. Memories you pushed away. Regrets you never processed. Fears you ignored. When they rise, your first impulse might be to run back to your old habits. But this 6-month season is an invitation to finally feel what you have been avoiding. Not to drown in it, but to face it and move through it. You are not weak for having wounds. You are human. The things that hurt you in the past shaped how you see yourself and what you believe you deserve. As you build new habits, some of those beliefs will be challenged. You might feel like you are not worthy of a peaceful life, healthy relationships, or success in your goals. That is why the emotional work matters just as much as the practical changes. When you reconnect with your worth, you stop settling for chaos. 6 months is long enough to start healing patterns you thought were permanent. It will not fix everything, but it will prove to you that you are not stuck with the story you grew up with or the story your past wrote for you. You are not doomed to repeat the same mistakes in every area of your life. With awareness, honesty, and consistent action, you can interrupt those old cycles and begin living in a way that actually matches who you want to be. And when you feel like giving up, remember why you began. You did not start this just to look good for other people. You started because you were tired of lying to yourself. You started because something inside you knows there is more to your life than going through the motions. Every time you want to quit, go back to that feeling. Let it remind you that the discomfort of growth is still better than the misery of staying stuck. There is something else you need to understand about these 6 months. They are not just about what you do. They are about what you stop doing. You have been carrying habits, expectations, and even relationships that drain you, and you call it normal life. But normal has been costing you your peace, your focus, and your sense of direction. These next months are your chance to look at everything you have been tolerating and finally decide what no longer deserves space in your life. This might mean saying no more often than you are used to. No to plans that leave you feeling empty. No to conversations that always spiral into gossip, complaining, or negativity. No to the version of you that agrees to everything just to avoid disappointing people. You are not rude for protecting your time. You are not selfish for protecting your energy. You are simply learning that your life is not a public resource for everyone else to use whenever they feel like it. At the same time, these 6 months are a chance to strengthen the things that truly matter. You can start pouring more attention into the relationships that support your growth instead of the ones that keep you stuck. Spend time with people who speak to your potential, not just to your past. You do not need a huge circle. You just need a few people who remind you who you are when you forget. And if you do not have those people yet, let this be the season where you become that person for yourself. You may have spent years waiting for someone to rescue you, validate you, or push you. But right now, you have the chance to be your own turning point. You can be the one who says, "Enough, we are not living like this anymore." You can be the one who holds yourself to a higher standard, not out of shame, but out of respect for the life you want to build. Momentum Audiobooks may have brought this message into your life, but what you do with it is on you. Nobody can do your push-ups for you. Nobody can sleep for you, move for you, think for you, or heal for you. People can inspire you, but they cannot live your life. At some point, you have to decide that your future is worth the discomfort of change, and once you decide that, your actions have to reflect it. One powerful way to anchor your 6-month journey is to be very clear about what you are moving toward. Not a vague idea like, "I want to be better," but something you can describe in detail. How does the future you carry themselves? How do they speak? How do they handle stress? What do their mornings look like? What kind of work are they doing? How do they treat their body, their mind, and their relationships? Write it down in simple language. You do not need fancy words. You just need clarity. When you can see that future version of yourself clearly, your daily choices stop being random. Instead of asking, "What do I feel like doing?" you start asking, "What would that version of me choose right now?" It will not always be the easier option, but it will always be the one that builds instead of breaking. You are not trying to become someone else. You are becoming more fully yourself without all the distractions, fears, and excuses that have been weighing you down. Deep down, you have always known you were capable of more than the way you have been living. That quiet voice inside you that keeps asking for more is not your ego. It is your potential, reminding you not to settle. Over the next 6 months, there will be days that feel powerful and days that feel empty. Days when you are proud of yourself and days when you feel like you are moving backwards. That is normal. Progress is not a straight line. What matters is not that every day is perfect. What matters is that you keep returning to your commitment, even after the days when you fall short. When you slip, the old version of you will want to turn one mistake into a collapse. You missed one workout, so you might as well skip the whole week. You broke one promise to yourself, so you might as well forget the whole plan. That kind of thinking is exactly what kept you stuck for so long. In these 6 months, you are choosing a different response. When you fall, you get back up the same day, not next month. You do not wait to feel motivated again. You do not punish yourself or call yourself names. You simply admit what happened, learn from it, and return to the path. That simple decision to recover quickly instead of spiraling is one of the most powerful skills you will build. You will also start to see that discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It is the path to it. When you are ruled by your impulses, you might feel free in the moment, but you are trapped in the long term. You are at the mercy of your moods, your cravings, and your distractions. When you build structure and self-control, you gain the ability to choose your actions instead of being dragged by them. 6 months of focused effort will not solve every problem in your life, but they will show you something you may have forgotten: you are not powerless. You are not just a passenger in your own story. You have more control over your time, your habits, your environment, and your reactions than you have been using. Once you see that clearly, it becomes very hard to go back to pretending you are stuck. And that is the real gift of this season. Not just a new routine or a better body or a more organized life, but a completely different relationship with yourself. You begin to trust your own word. You begin to feel proud of how you show up. You begin to see that the gap between who you are and who you want to be is not as big as you thought. It is built out of daily choices, and daily choices are within your control. As these 6 months unfold, you will start to see that progress is much easier to notice when you measure it on purpose. For most of your life, you have been judging yourself based on vague feelings. You tell yourself you are failing without ever looking at real evidence. You assume you are not improving because you do not feel different, even though your actions have already changed. Feelings are important, but they are not always accurate. That is why you need simple ways to track what you are actually doing. This does not have to be complicated. You do not need fancy charts or a perfect system. You just need proof. A notebook, a note on your phone, a simple document where you mark down the habits that matter most over the next 6 months. Did you move your body today? Did you protect your mornings from distraction? Did you spend time on the work that truly matters to you? Did you speak to yourself with respect instead of tearing yourself down? One line of evidence a day is enough. When you can see your actions laid out in front of you, it becomes harder to believe the old story that you never stick to anything. Even on days when you feel like nothing is changing, you will see the marks building up on the page. That is real momentum. It might not look dramatic yet, but it is stacking up under the surface, preparing a shift that you will only fully recognize later. Momentum audiobooks can give you messages, tools, and reminders, but only you can create that evidence. Only you can put in the repetitions that rewrite how you see yourself. 6 months of showing up, even imperfectly, will give you more proof of your own strength than years of thinking about changing ever did. You will stop arguing with yourself about who you are and start accepting the reality that your choices are different now. Another powerful shift during this time will be the way you handle stress and setbacks. For most of your life, stress has probably triggered your worst habits. You feel overwhelmed, and you reach for whatever numbs the feeling fastest. You get bad news, and suddenly the promises you made to yourself disappear. It is not that you do not care about your goals. It is that you never learned how to stay grounded when life feels heavy. The next 6 months are a training ground for that. Instead of waiting for life to be calm before you take yourself seriously, you practice holding your standards even when things are messy. You will not always get it right, and that is okay. What matters is that you start recognizing your usual escape routes. Maybe you shut down. Maybe you overthink. Maybe you complain to everyone but never change anything. The moment you notice the pattern is the moment you can choose differently. When stress hits, try asking yourself one question: what is the next right action that keeps me aligned with who I am becoming? Not the perfect solution, not the future plan, just the next right action. It might be going for a walk instead of grabbing your phone. It might be sending the message you have been avoiding. It might be pausing to breathe instead of reacting in anger. Tiny choices like this are how you prove to yourself that you can handle life without abandoning your growth. You will also begin to see that rest is not the enemy of progress. There is a difference between intentional rest and avoidance. Avoidance drains you and leaves you feeling guilty. Rest restores you and helps you return stronger. Over these 6 months, part of your work is learning how to rest on purpose. That might mean setting a specific time where you unplug without shame, knowing you have already done what you needed to do for the day. When you earn your rest, it feels different. You are not hiding from responsibilities. You are recovering so you can keep going. You stop seeing rest as something you have to earn by suffering and start seeing it as a natural part of a sustainable life. This balance between focused work and intentional recovery is what allows you to keep your promises for more than a few intense weeks. As you move through this season, your relationship with time will start to change as well. You will realize how much of your life used to disappear in little gaps of mindless distraction. 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, an hour lost to scrolling that you barely remember. None of those moments felt like a big deal by themselves, but together they built a life that felt chaotic and out of control. Now, you are learning to treat time like the rare and non-refundable resource it is. That does not mean you schedule every second or rush through your days. It means you become honest about where your hours are really going. You start choosing to be fully present in whatever you are doing, whether it is working, resting, or being with people you care about. Presence is what turns ordinary time into meaningful time. There will be days when you still waste time, because you are human. The difference is that now you will notice. You will feel the contrast between autopilot and intention. Instead of pretending you did not see it, you will gently guide yourself back on track. That awareness alone is a sign of growth. 6 months ago, you might have lost an entire day without realizing it. Now, you catch yourself faster and return to what matters. Another shift you will notice is in how you respond to opportunities. Before, you might have hesitated, doubted yourself, or talked yourself out of anything that felt bigger than your current identity. You told yourself you were not ready, not qualified, not the kind of person who does things like that. Over time, you built a habit of shrinking. These 6 months are your chance to reverse that pattern. As you keep the promises you make to yourself, you will start to feel different on the inside. You will not suddenly become fearless, but you will become more willing to act even when you are afraid. You will see an opportunity and instead of immediately listing all the reasons you cannot, you will pause and ask, what if I am more capable than I think? That small question can open doors you would have walked past before. By the end of this 6-month stretch, you will not just have new habits. You will have a new way of moving through the world. You will feel less like a passenger and more like the main character in your own story. You will understand, on a deep level, that your life is shaped not by what you intend to do someday, but by what you actually do today. And once you know that, it becomes much harder to waste your days. This is the quiet revolution these months are offering you. Not a dramatic, overnight transformation, but a steady shift in how you think, act, and relate to yourself. You may not notice the full impact while you are in the middle of it, but one day you will look back and realize that this was the season when you finally stopped waiting for your life to change and started changing it from the inside out. One of the most important realizations you will have in this 6-month journey is that your life is not waiting for some future moment to begin. This is it. These days you are living right now are not a rehearsal. They count. The way you spend your mornings, the way you speak to yourself, the way you handle your responsibilities, all of it is shaping the person you are becoming. When you finally let that truth sink in, procrastination stops feeling harmless and starts feeling like what it really is, a quiet form of self-abandonment. You have delayed so many things by telling yourself, I will start when I feel ready. But readiness is not an emotion that appears out of nowhere. Readiness is something you create by taking action while you are still uncertain. Think about the moments in your life when you grew the most. You were probably not calm and confident at the beginning. You were nervous, unsure, maybe even scared. And yet, when you moved anyway, that is when your capacity expanded. For the next 6 months, begin to see action as the cure for self-doubt. When your mind starts listing all the reasons you might fail, you do not have to argue with it forever. You can acknowledge the fear, and then take the next step anyway. Send the email. Start the workout. Open the book. Record the video. Write the first line. The point is not to do it perfectly. The point is to prove to yourself that hesitation is not the one in charge anymore. The more you do this, the more you will notice something powerful. Your fear does not disappear first and then invite you to move. It fades while you are already in motion. Confidence is not what drives you to act. Confidence is what grows because you acted. 6 months of choosing movement over mental spirals will build a level of self-trust that no motivational speech could ever give you. Along the way, you will need to redefine what failure means to you. For a long time, you have treated failure like a final verdict on who you are. You tried something once, it did not work the way you hoped, and you decided that meant you were not meant for it. You forgot that failure is not proof of who you are. It is information. It is feedback. It is an invitation to adjust and try again with more wisdom than you had before. During these 6 months, let failure become a teacher instead of a label. When something does not go the way you planned, resist the urge to attack yourself. Instead of asking, "What is wrong with me?" start asking, "What can I learn from this?" Maybe you tried to change too many things at once. Maybe you overestimated how much time you had. Maybe you did not have enough support or structure. None of that means you are broken. It just means you have data you did not have before. If you stay in the game long enough, you will start to realize that the people you respect most are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who keep getting back up. They do not dramatize their setbacks. They do not turn a mistake into a story about their identity. They adjust, they refine, they move forward. That is the attitude you are practicing now. Not perfection, but resilience. These 6 months are also an opportunity to reconnect with something you may have lost, your ability to enjoy the process instead of only chasing the result. When you are obsessed with outcomes, every day feels like a test you are failing. You tell yourself you will be happy when you reach a certain number, hit a certain goal, or finally feel like you have caught up. But life is lived in the middle, not just at the finish line. Start noticing the small wins again. The quiet sense of peace after you kept a promise to yourself. The satisfaction of closing a day knowing you used your time with intention. The calm that comes from a cleaned room, a finished task, a workout you did not want to do but completed anyway. These moments might seem small, but they are the exact building blocks of the future you say you want. If you rush past every step, you rob yourself of the joy that is already available to you. For the next 6 months, practice letting yourself feel proud even when the progress is tiny. You are not lowering your standards. You are recognizing that big transformations are made of small, repeated choices. Celebrating those choices does not make you complacent. It makes you more likely to keep going. You may also notice that as you become more intentional, certain distractions lose their appeal. The conversations that used to excite you might start to feel shallow. The content that used to entertain you might now feel like a waste of precious energy. That is not you becoming boring. That is you outgrowing the things that once numbed you. It can feel strange at first, even lonely, but it is a sign of growth. In these moments, it is important not to rush back to your old habits just because they are familiar. Instead, give yourself space to explore what actually fulfills you now. Maybe it is learning a new skill, spending time in nature, reading, creating, or simply sitting in silence and listening to your own thoughts. The more you taste real fulfillment, the less interested you become in shallow distractions that only offer quick relief and long-term emptiness. Momentum audiobooks might show up in your life as a reminder, but nothing changes if you treat reminders like entertainment. You are not here just to listen to powerful words and then forget them. You are here to embody them. To turn them into behavior. To let them change how you move through the world. Every time you catch yourself nodding along to a message, ask, "How will I live this out today?" Another crucial part of this season is learning to be patient with the timeline of your growth. 6 months can change your life, but it is still just 6 months. You will not undo a decade of habits in a week. You will not rewrite your entire identity in a month. There will be moments when your progress feels painfully slow. That is when you must remember that slow is not the same as stuck. Patience is not passive. It is active persistence. It is choosing to keep doing the right things, even when you have not yet seen the result. It is trusting that seeds grow underground long before you see anything above the surface. These 6 months are about planting and watering, not constantly digging up the soil to see if anything is happening. Your job is to keep showing up. The timeline is not always yours to control. As you walk through this process, you may encounter people who do not understand why you are changing. Some will support you. Some will distance themselves. Some might even criticize you or say you have become selfish, obsessed, or different. And in a way, they are right. You are becoming different. You are no longer willing to live on autopilot. You are no longer willing to sacrifice your future to protect other people's comfort. You do not need everyone to approve of your growth. You do not need every person from your past to walk with you into your future. It is okay if some relationships fade as you evolve. It is okay if you outgrow certain environments that once felt like home. Growth is not always glamorous. Sometimes it looks like being misunderstood for a while. Sometimes it looks like walking alone until you find the people who match your new standards. Through all of this, remember that your goal is not to become a harder, colder version of yourself. Your goal is to become a more honest, more grounded, more intentional version of yourself. One who still cares deeply, but no longer betrays themselves to keep everyone else comfortable. One who can love others without abandoning their own needs. One who can show up fully because they are no longer drained by constant self-neglect. By the time these 6 months come to an end, you will have a choice. You can treat this as a short chapter that you close and move on from, or you can treat it as the foundation of an entirely new way of living. If you have stayed consistent, even imperfectly, you will have more clarity, more strength, and more self-respect than you did at the beginning. From there, continuing will not feel like starting over. It will simply feel like the natural next step in a story you are finally writing on purpose. As you keep walking through this 6-month commitment, another truth becomes clear: the person you are building is not only for you. Yes, this journey starts because you are tired of your own patterns, but it does not end there. When you begin to live with more honesty, discipline, and self-respect, everyone around you feels the difference. You become more reliable, more present, more grounded. You become someone others can lean on, not because you fix their lives, but because your example quietly proves that change is possible. Think about the people you care about most. Maybe there are friends, family members, or even younger versions of you who are watching how you live. They may never say it out loud, but your choices give them permission to aim higher or settle lower. When you shrink, they learn that shrinking is normal. When you give up, they learn that giving up is acceptable. When you rise, even slowly, they learn that rising is an option for them too. These 6 months are not about becoming perfect in the eyes of others. They are about becoming aligned in your own eyes, so that when you show up for the people in your life, you do it from a place of strength instead of resentment or exhaustion. You listen better when you are not constantly at war with yourself. You love more deeply when you do not feel empty inside. You are more generous with your time and energy when you are no longer leaking it through self-sabotage. This is why protecting your standards is an act of love, not selfishness. When you say no to what drains you, you are saying yes to the version of you that can truly contribute. When you honor your routines, your sleep, your focus, and your boundaries, you are building a life that can hold more responsibility without collapsing. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot keep pretending that running yourself into the ground is noble. Momentum audiobooks might remind you to dream bigger, but you are the one who has to protect that dream in the details of your everyday life. Nobody sees the small choices you make when you are alone, but those are the choices that decide who you really become. Whether you close the laptop when you said you would. Whether you scroll for another hour or rest. Whether you choose the conversation that builds or the one that tears down. The outside world may never clap for these decisions, but your future will. As you move forward, it helps to regularly pause and check in with yourself. Not just, am I being productive, but deeper questions like, am I living in alignment with my values right now? Am I proud of how I handled today? Where did I act from fear, and where did I act from courage? You do not ask these questions to beat yourself up. You ask them to stay awake in your own life, to notice when you are drifting and gently come back. Journaling, speaking out loud, or simply sitting in reflection for a few minutes at the end of the day can become one of the most powerful parts of this 6-month season. It is in those quiet moments that you start to see patterns clearly. You notice, for example, that every time you feel insecure, you reach for distraction. Or that every time you feel overwhelmed, you isolate instead of asking for help. Once you see these patterns, you can create new responses on purpose. You might begin to replace, "I cannot handle this" with, "This is hard, but I am learning how to move through it." You might replace, "This always happens to me" with, "This is a familiar pattern, and I have a chance to respond differently now." Subtle shifts in language create massive shifts in behavior over time, because your words shape what your brain expects from you. Another important layer of this journey is your relationship with goals. Many people set goals like wishes. They say what they want, but they never connect it to who they are becoming daily. For these 6 months, let your goals be more than numbers or milestones. Let them be reflections of deeper values. If you are working on your health, maybe the real goal is self-respect and longevity. If you are working on your finances, maybe the real goal is stability and freedom. When you understand the value behind the goal, it becomes easier to stay committed when the surface motivation fades. Break your big goals into behaviors you can touch every day. Not someday actions, but today actions. If the long-term vision is to be strong and healthy, the today action might be drinking water, moving your body, and getting enough sleep. If the long-term vision is to build a meaningful career, the today action might be working on your craft for an hour, sending one email, or learning one new skill. Small steps do not mean small dreams. They mean real dreams. You may be tempted to keep your goals secret because you are afraid of being judged if you fail. There is nothing wrong with being private, but do not let secrecy become another form of hiding. Sometimes, sharing your intentions with one trustworthy person can add a layer of support and accountability that makes all the difference. Choose someone who believes in growth, not someone who mocks your efforts. If you do not have that person yet, keep moving forward anyway. As you change, you will naturally attract people who are aligned with your new direction. As you grow, you will also start to feel a deeper sense of responsibility for the opportunities in front of you. You begin to see that your talents, your ideas, and your perspective are not accidents. They are tools. Tools that can solve problems, serve others, create beauty, or bring more understanding into the world. When you waste them, you are not just letting yourself down. You are withholding something that could have made a difference for someone else. This does not mean you have to turn everything into work or constantly produce for others. It simply means recognizing that your life has weight. Your presence has impact. When you show up as a more whole, present, and disciplined version of yourself, you become a better friend, partner, parent, creator, leader, or contributor in whatever roles matter to you. Your personal growth and your ability to serve are deeply connected. During these 6 months, pay attention to the moments when serving others actually strengthens you. Maybe it is sending an encouraging message, helping someone understand something you once struggled with, or showing kindness when you are tempted to be cold. You will notice that when your own cup is no longer empty, giving does not drain you in the same way. It can even energize you, because you are acting in alignment with the person you want to be. At the same time, remember that you are still human. You will have days when you feel small, tired, or unmotivated. You will have days when you question whether any of this effort is worth it. On those days, zoom out. Look at how far you have already come compared to the version of you who was stuck in cycles of distraction, avoidance, and self-doubt. That person did not even know they could live the way you are living now. Use that perspective to remind yourself that every season of growth includes resistance. Muscles do not get stronger without tension. Your character does not deepen without challenge. The presence of difficulty is not a sign you are on the wrong path. Often, it is proof that you are exactly where you are supposed to be, beyond your old limits, learning how to stand in a bigger space. You might not see it clearly yet, but you are already rewriting what the next 5, 10, or 20 years of your life can look like. By changing how you handle a single day, you are changing the trajectory of entire decades. That is the power of these 6 months. It is not about becoming a different person overnight. It is about choosing, over and over, to be a little more intentional, a little more courageous, a little more aligned than you were yesterday. When you look back from the future, this period will stand out as a turning point. Not because everything suddenly became easy, but because you stopped running from the work and started embracing it. You stopped waiting for someone to save you and decided to participate fully in your own life. You began to honor your time, your body, your mind, and your potential as things worth protecting. And as that respect grows, so does your capacity. Capacity to handle more without breaking. Capacity to love without losing yourself. Capacity to pursue big dreams without being crushed by setbacks. That is what these 6 months are really about, expanding what you believe is possible for you, and then aligning your daily choices with that belief, one intentional step at a time. By now, as you move deeper into this 6-month decision, you are starting to notice that the biggest changes are happening in places nobody else can see. On the outside, your life might look similar. You still go to work, show up to your responsibilities, deal with the same challenges. But inside, the way you respond is different. You pause where you used to react. You choose where you used to drift. You stand up for yourself where you used to stay silent. That inner shift is the foundation of everything that follows. There was a time when you thought change would feel dramatic all at once, like a sudden wave of motivation that washed away every bad habit in a single moment. Now you are starting to realize that real change feels quieter. It feels like having the same old thoughts, but choosing a new action. It feels like waking up tired and still doing the things you promised you would do. It feels like moving forward one honest step at a time, even when there is no applause, no audience, and no instant reward. This is where many people give up, because they mistake quiet growth for no growth at all. They cannot see the roots forming under the surface, so they assume nothing is happening. But you are learning to trust what you cannot yet fully see. You understand now that every time you keep a promise to yourself, you are strengthening a part of you that used to be weak. Every time you choose discipline instead of distraction, you are building a future that will look and feel very different from your past. Momentum audiobooks might have been one of the sparks that woke you up, but the fire you are tending now is yours. You are the one who keeps it alive on the days when the motivation is gone. You are the one who chooses to protect your mornings, to watch your thoughts, to return to your commitments even after you slip. That quiet determination you are building is far more valuable than any temporary rush of inspiration. As these months unfold, you may find yourself remembering old versions of you with more compassion. The version that numbed out with distractions. The version that stayed in unhealthy situations because they were afraid of change. The version that talked big but never followed through. It can be tempting to feel ashamed of those seasons, but shame is not necessary. Those versions of you did the best they could with the tools and awareness they had at the time. Now you have different tools. Now you see more clearly. And that clarity is not a weapon to use against your past self. It is a responsibility to your present and future self. Instead of saying, "I wasted so much time," you can say, "I finally understand what my time is worth now." Instead of saying, "I should have known better," you can say, "I know better now, and I am going to live like it." That shift from regret to responsibility is one of the clearest signs that you are growing. Another change that becomes more obvious in this stage is your sensitivity to what you allow into your space. You notice more quickly when a conversation drains you. You recognize faster when a habit is pulling you backward. You feel it in your body when you betray your own standards. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is awareness. It is your mind and body learning to speak up when something is out of alignment. In the past, you may have numbed those signals. You felt the tightness in your chest, the heaviness in your stomach, the restlessness in your thoughts, and you silenced it with distraction. Now, you are starting to listen. When something feels off, you pause long enough to ask why. You do not always have the answer right away, but the act of paying attention keeps you from drifting back into patterns that once felt invisible. These 6 months are teaching you that boundaries are not walls to keep life out. They are doors you learn to open and close with intention. You decide what comes in and what does not. You decide who gets access to your time, your energy, and your attention. You decide what habits are allowed to stay and which ones are no longer welcome. That decision might upset some people, but it will also protect the future you are building. You may notice that as your standards rise, some areas of your life feel more uncomfortable before they feel better. The job that once felt tolerable may start to feel misaligned with the person you are becoming. The friendships that were built only on complaining or escaping may start to feel shallow. The way you used to spend your weekends might no longer satisfy you. This discomfort is not a sign that you made a mistake. It is a sign that you are outgrowing an older version of your life. Outgrowing is rarely neat. It can be messy, emotional, and confusing. You might feel guilty for wanting more. You might question whether you are being ungrateful. But wanting to grow does not mean you hate everything you have. It simply means you are honoring the potential inside you. You are acknowledging that staying exactly the same forever would be a kind of slow death for your spirit. During this time, it is important to move with both courage and patience. Courage to take the small steps that pull your life into alignment, and patience with the parts that cannot shift overnight. You might not be able to change your job immediately, but you can change how you show up in it. You might not be able to change your environment in a day, but you can create pockets of order, peace, and focus wherever you can. You might not be able to shift every relationship right away, but you can start by changing how you respond within them. As your inner world changes, opportunities that once seemed invisible will start to stand out. You will notice chances to learn, to connect, to grow, that your old self would have ignored or dismissed. A course that could help your career. A conversation that could open a new door. A project that allows you to use your strengths in a new way. You will not say yes to everything, but you will no longer automatically say no to anything that stretches you. You will also begin to recognize the difference between impulse and intuition. Impulse is loud, urgent, and tied to immediate comfort. Intuition is quieter, steadier, and tied to long-term alignment. Impulse says, do whatever feels good right now. Intuition says, do what will still feel right tomorrow. Over these 6 months, you are learning to lower the volume on impulse and lean more into intuition. That skill alone can change the entire direction of your life. There will be evenings when you sit in the quiet and realize that you are not as restless as you used to be. Your mind might still have worries, but beneath them there is a deeper sense of stability. That stability does not come from everything in your life being perfect. It comes from knowing that you are finally showing up for yourself consistently. You trust that even if tomorrow is hard, you will still choose actions that respect your future. At this point in the journey, you might also start to see glimpses of the person you once only imagined. The way you respond to stress. The way you keep your word. The way you move through your days with more intention than chaos. These glimpses are not fantasies. They are proof that the gap between who you are and who you want to be is already closing. You may still have a long way to go in some areas. There will still be habits to refine, wounds to heal, skills to build. But you are no longer standing at the starting line, wondering if you are capable. You are in the process. You are in motion. You have evidence behind you and possibilities ahead of you. That combination is powerful, because it roots you in reality while still pulling you toward growth. If doubt creeps in, as it will, you now have something you did not have before, a track record. You can look back over these weeks and months and see the mornings you chose discipline, the nights you chose rest, the conversations where you chose honesty, the days you pushed through resistance. That evidence is your anchor when your mind tries to tell you that you are still the old you. You are not. You have already changed more than you realize. As you move toward the final stretch of these 6 months, remember that the goal was never to create a perfect life in a short amount of time. The goal was to build a strong foundation. A foundation of honesty, discipline, self-respect, and intention that you can continue to build on long after the 6-month mark has passed. You are not racing toward an ending. You are preparing yourself for a beginning. The version of you who reaches the end of this season will not be a finished product. They will be a more grounded, more aware, more capable starting point for everything that comes next. And that might be the most powerful realization of all, that this journey was never about becoming someone else, but about finally becoming someone you can trust to carry your own life forward with clarity and courage. As you arrive at the final stretch of these 6 months, it is important to understand something clearly. The calendar might say this chapter is almost over, but the person you have become in the process is just beginning. You did not go through all this effort just to snap back into your old defaults. You did it to prove to yourself that a different way of living is possible, and now you have evidence written into your days. Look at what has already changed. You have become more aware of your patterns instead of blindly repeating them. You have learned how to pause before you react. You have practiced choosing what aligns with your values instead of what numbs your discomfort. You have discovered that you can handle more than you thought, and that your feelings, while real, do not have to be the dictators of your behavior. There were mornings when getting out of bed felt heavy, and you moved anyway. There were evenings when your old habits called to you, and you chose differently. There were moments when quitting would have been easier, but some small, steady part of you said, "Not this time." Those moments matter. They are not small at all. They are the proof that the old story about you is no longer the only story. You might still be tempted to look at everything that is not yet where you want it to be. The goals you have not reached. The habits you are still building. The emotions that still feel raw. That is okay. Growth does not erase your humanity. It simply gives you better tools to walk through it. Instead of judging yourself for not being further along, try asking a different question: who was I 6 months ago, and how would they feel seeing me now? That earlier version of you might be amazed that you now think before you scroll. That you protect your mornings. That you speak to yourself with more respect. That you are willing to say no when something is draining you. That you are open to opportunities that once terrified you. They would probably feel relieved to know that change was not just possible in theory, but real in practice. This is the moment to acknowledge that you did not get here by accident. Momentum Audiobooks may have put some words in front of you, but you were the one who chose to act on them. You were the one who showed up on the boring days, the frustrating days, the days when motivation ran dry. You were the one who kept going when nobody was clapping, when nobody was checking on you, when the only person who knew how hard it felt was you. You deserve to recognize that effort, not to inflate your ego, but to honor the truth. For too long, you have been quick to criticize yourself and slow to acknowledge your progress. These 6 months have taught you that self-respect is built by telling yourself the truth, both about where you fall short and about where you have grown. You are allowed to say, "I am proud of the way I kept showing up." That is not arrogance. That is honesty. As this specific timeframe comes to an end, you have a choice to make about what comes next. You can treat this as a challenge you completed and then move on, or you can treat it as your new baseline. Not a strict, rigid standard you beat yourself up over, but a living foundation. A set of principles that guide how you move through the next season of your life. Those principles are simple, even if they are not always easy. Tell yourself the truth, especially when it is uncomfortable. Protect your time and attention like they are your most valuable resources, because they are. Honor your body with movement, rest, and care. Speak to yourself in a way that supports your growth instead of attacking your worth. Surround yourself with people, environments, and inputs that build you instead of breaking you down. Keep using the tools that worked for you in these months. If writing things down helped you stay grounded, keep writing. If planning your mornings helped you stay focused, keep planning. If checking in with yourself at the end of the day helped you reset, keep checking in. The goal is not to cling desperately to every routine, but to carry forward what genuinely serves you and let go of what was only meant for this season. Remember, you are not under pressure to maintain some flawless streak. Life will still bring unexpected changes, busy seasons, and emotional storms. You will still have days when you slip back into old habits or forget your standards for a moment. That does not erase everything you have built. The difference now is that you know how to return more quickly. You know how to catch yourself, correct gently, and move forward without collapsing into shame. This is one of the greatest strengths you have gained, resilience. Not the kind that pretends nothing hurts, but the kind that feels the hit and then chooses to rise again. You have learned that you can feel tired and still act with intention. You can feel afraid and still take the next step. You can feel uncertain and still move in the direction of the life you want. That combination of honesty and courage is what will carry you far beyond 6 months. As you look ahead, allow yourself to dream with more confidence than before. Not in a way that escapes the present, but in a way that honors what you are capable of now. Maybe there are projects you want to start, places you want to go, skills you want to build, relationships you want to nurture. Instead of telling yourself, "That is not for someone like me," you can now say, "If I can change this much in half a year, who knows what I can build over the next few years." Let that possibility excite you, not overwhelm you. You do not need to figure out the next 5 years today. You just need to keep doing what brought you here, making the next honest choice. Protecting the next hour. Returning to your values when you feel lost. Taking the next aligned step even when nobody else understands it yet. The path ahead will reveal itself as you keep walking. There will still be voices, inside and outside, that try to pull you back. Old identities do not disappear quietly. People who preferred the version of you that never changed may try to make you doubt yourself. Your own mind might whisper that this growth is temporary, that you will slip back eventually. When that happens, do not argue endlessly with those voices. Show them evidence. Remember the mornings you changed. Remember the nights you chose differently. Remember the conversations where you spoke up. You are not who you were. If there is one thing to carry with you from this entire journey, let it be this: your life responds to what you repeatedly do, not to what you occasionally feel. Feelings will rise and fall. Motivation will come and go. But the habits you have built, the honesty you have practiced, the standards you have raised, those are the things that will keep shaping your days, long after the emotion of this moment has faded. 6 months ago, you made a decision. You decided to stop waiting for some distant future and start living on purpose now. You decided to stop treating your time like it was disposable. You decided to stop abandoning yourself every time things got hard. That decision has brought you here, to a version of you who is more awake, more intentional, and more connected to their own power. From here, you do not need anyone's permission to keep going. You do not need constant reminders to prove that change is possible. You have become your own proof. You have lived the difference between drifting and deciding, between numbing out and showing up, between wishing and acting. That experience is yours to carry into every new season. So when this 6-month mark arrives, do not see it as a finish line. See it as a doorway. A doorway into a life where you continue to treat your attention, your energy, and your choices as sacred. A life where you keep practicing honesty, discipline, and self-respect, not because anyone is watching, but because you finally understand that you are worth that effort. You began this journey wondering if you could truly change. Now you know the answer. You can. You did. And you will keep doing it, one intentional day at a time, for as long as you choose to live as the author of your own life instead of just a character in a story someone else wrote for you.